In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, the reason that I entitled this video Silencing of the Lambs is because I believe that that's something that we're going to see even more of. Okay, we went through the whole censorship thing, and that, for people that were speaking out against, their opinion, what they believed on COVID, what they believed about Biden's son's laptop. We've seen censorship before, and one of the things, I guess, the reason that I titled this "Silencing the Lambs" is because I think there's a pattern here, and we've seen it before where countries would flip overnight, almost from a democratic republic into a socialist country, or worse, into a communist dictatorship. And I think that's what is being perpetrated now, or trying to be perpetrated now. I truly believe that. It starts with the censorship. It starts with, disarming the people, and I mean, really all you have to do is listen to the argument of some of these people. That's where the insanity comes in. It's like people aren't thinking clearly. Either that, or like I say, it's just an insidious thing, which I think it's probably a little bit of both. But when you want to, disarm the American people, completely do away with the Second Amendment, do away with any kind of, freedom to own a firearm, even if you don't have a criminal record, you've done background checks, you've trained as I have, and you don't have any felonies against you or anything like that. When you want to take away all guns, because they kill too many people, and so I think most of you know my stance on that is just guns don't pull their own trigger. Okay, people have to do that. So it's not really the gun's fault; it's the people's fault. Now, I think there are things that we could do to tighten it up a little bit and make it safer, but I don't understand the thinking that you want to disarm the American people, or, as I live in California, our governor has talked about, making AR-15s illegal, and what have you. But at the same time, they legalize marijuana and pot, or marijuana and cocaine, and heroin, where you can just walk into a building and shoot up. And so I don't really think the concern for me, it's almost hypocritical when I think about some of the statements, when you take the statement about drugs, and let's just give it to them, and then take the guns and let's just take them away. They don't make any sense. So it's idiotic thinking, and so most of it has to do with the political agenda. And so I did a video here recently called Can of Worms, and it was basically just kind of going into the political history of the Progressive Party and where it came from. And I'm not saying all progressives stem from this kind of radical thinking. Okay, there is a more moderate line of progressivism, but what we have in power right now is, well, I don't even think Biden's running the government. I don't think he's capable of it. But I think those that are around him that are running the government are very radical. I think that this is and again, it's just my opinion, and I can say it because I have the freedom of speech under the Bill of Rights, but I think it's a coup d'etat. We've never had a president in the history of this country had his mugshot taken. From what I understand, President Trump has been arrested for racketeering. They've yet to prove any of these things. For challenging an election, which Hillary Clinton challenged the last election, said it was stolen because of Russian influence and Russian disinformation, only to find out later that the dossier was actually bought and paid for by her own campaign. Stacey Abrams is still complaining that she was cheated out of being a mayor. And so in one of the interviews that I saw, and one of the things that I found really I was taken back by, was that Trump's lawyers were arrested. And that to me was, I don't know if it's illegal, but it seemed extreme. Okay. basically what we see happening in this country. And again, it doesn't matter whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, or you voted for him or you would never vote for him. None of that matters. What matters is the process of what we see happening in this country. And that is the Justice Department of the United States being weaponized. It's obvious now. It should be obvious now. There's a political agenda behind it. Weaponized to crush the political opponent of the ones who are in power. And we've seen it before, not to this extreme though. And that's what worries me is the extremes that we're seeing it go to. This is what Zelensky did. Okay, so we basically chose the government that we wanted to prop up in Ukraine. We basically removed one, then chose the government that was testified to in Congress through a phone call that was recorded. And we put Zelensky in power. And then Zelensky, after a while, began to punish his political opponents. He'd lock them up, put them in jail, and then turned around and made a certain form of religion illegal. And it's just amazing to me that they do this, and then at the same time they come to the United States Congress, stand on the floor, and say that they're fighting for a republic, they're fighting for democracy, when every all the actions show that they're really not any different than Putin himself. And so, I think that this is a battle that's going to get a lot bigger. Because I think there's a lot more at stake here. I believe that the future of the United States depends a great deal on praying the chaplet every day and offering it in reparation for the sins of this country. We need heaven's help. As I've said before, I believe that this country's in a battle for its soul. If things stay true to form, okay, and these radicals, which they are, stay in power and continue to control government, control laws, control the DAs, control the judges. I can tell you right now, it's only a matter of time before they come for the American bishops. And the American bishops will have to make a choice. And it's only a matter of time before they come for the priests. And the Catholic priests, will have to make a choice. It's only a matter of time before they come for the Christian or the lay faithful Catholic. And the lay faithful Catholic and the Christian are going to have to make a choice. And I think it's one of the main reasons that we are to pray the Chaplet of Divine Mercy every day and to offer it in reparation for the sins of this country. What we see happening in this country, if one is a critical thinker, and again, you don't have to be a genius. If one is a critical thinker, knows a little bit of history of how overthrows work, then that same person would have to admit to some extent that the deep state is real. Now, the deep state is, I know it sounds like a conspiratorial term, but it's not. Basically, what it is communist Marxist radicals who do not believe in the Constitution of the United States, that absolutely hate this country, they hate capitalism, want to overthrow it. And so it's not only the people that we have in power here that are running the government now, which, I mean, if you think about this for a minute. We have a president who's been arrested, had his mugshot taken, without any real proof that he's done anything wrong. We have a sitting president who has been exposed as having aliases used in emails to transfer money from China into his son's bank account, where it was distributed to 5 or 6 different members of his family, millions and millions of dollars. We have the current president on videotape admitting that basically he bribed the Ukrainian government to get rid of this lawyer that was investigating the business that his son was working for, or they weren't going to get $1 million. Okay, that's strong arming. It's against the law. We have a president who is obviously obviously compromised by China. And so when you start thinking about these things, like how does a Chinese balloon float all the way over the United States taking pictures and then only get shot down, you know, 8 miles off the coast on the other side of the country? You know, it makes you wonder, and one should wonder, one should be question it. So one should critically think about the possibility that China basically strong-armed Joe Biden with all the information that they have on him in order to let that balloon cross the entire country and take pictures of all our military sites. I mean, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's an honest question and a very real probability, knowing what we know now. My fear is that enough people don't stand up and speak truth in love. Okay, very often this country has been called, the great experiment. And over a period of time, just little by little by little by little by little. Okay, it's like, the old saying, you put a frog in boiling water and slowly turn up the heat, and the frog eventually boils to death without ever jumping out of the water. This is the communist and Marxist plan for this country, and it has been since the 1960s. And they've, taken off the look of the radical. They put on a suit and tie. They've infiltrated the Democratic Party, called themselves liberal, then called themselves progressive, and then moved all the way, as far as you can to the left and even more. And so it's something that's been planned. I don't know how many of you know this, but if you look up a congressional record, I believe it's called the 45 goals or 46 goals of the Communist Party for the United States. And it was entered into Congress. It is a congressional record that is the public has access to. All you have to do is Google it, and what you'll see. There's no other conclusion that you can come to with the policies and the things that are being passed now, with people like George Soros pouring billions of hundreds of thousands of dollars into these DAs elections and campaigns to get the most progressive or radical DAs you can in the biggest cities of the country. They're carrying this plan out, and they have been carrying this plan out for a long time. There are people within our government that do not have the best interests of this country in mind. And it's an amazing thing to me that that our president, that the president of Canada, that King Charles, that any number of others around the world would seemingly be taking orders from the founder of the World Economic Forum, which is supposed to be a nonprofit organization to make the world a better place. You'll notice in the community portion of this channel, I posted a video in which they go through these things. The guy goes through all the stuff that is there in the website. The COVID thing's coming back. I don't know if you've noticed this either. I've noticed this. Every time new information or new evidence comes out against Hunter Biden or the Biden family, which I basically believe is a crime family, just totally corrupt, they bring another indictment against Trump. And my fear is that, to me, again, it doesn't matter whether you like President Trump, whether you voted for him. That doesn't matter. What matters is really, as an American, is the process that we're watching play out in front of us. President Trump seems to me to be, the force that can't be stopped, running into the deep state, which is an immovable object. And it's going to crescendo as it comes to this election. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if you see something chaotic happen, or this country's jolted in a way, in the same way that COVID happened. The entire election process in this country was changed because of COVID. The entire world's economy was shut down within 2 weeks. And, all these laws were passed, and all these, forced immunizations, and lies, just outright lies, even from the current president, that if you took the jab, you wouldn't catch COVID. And I mean, so in hindsight, we all look back and we're saying we can see how we were lied to. We can see how it was about big pharma and the kickbacks that were, the government, members of politicians were getting kickbacks through it. Again, my fear is as we move towards this election, this is where I believe this country is at right now, is that there are certain people within the government, as I said, that don't have the best interest of this country in mind. Okay, they are globalists, and they want a dictatorship. If you go down the website of the WEF forum and you read what their goals are, and how many times you read "you must," or these nations must, or this will be happening. It's like there's no choice there. They're just telling you. And so it's amazing to me how these world leaders around the world, from all these different countries, are literally taking orders from this guy. It's what it seems like. And they're all a part of it. They all belong to it. They're all members of it. But I think that you're going to see the same thing happen. To me, what is happening in this country right now is election interference happening before we are even getting there. Okay, I think that it is going to come to a head. I believe that the people that are in government that are so corrupt, that have sold this country out, that has undermined its sovereignty, that want to see it collapse, that have committed treason. I believe there are people that have committed treason. I'm not going to go into names, but I have some pretty good ideas of who. I think that's why they fear this president. And again, it doesn't matter whether you like Trump or you voted for him or whatever. Okay, personally, I think he's a little thin-skinned. He gets offended real easy. If you somehow get on his bad side, then you get a funny nickname. He's kind of entertaining, I guess. But I honestly believe that that President Trump has the best interest of the country at heart. I truly believe that. I think he loves this country. I think he was working for the people. As far as his business dealings and all that, I don't know. I don't know how anyone can be, a billionaire and not cut corners somehow. I mean, that's, it's just kind of a common thread that runs through billionaires. But I think what you're going to see, and again, I'm not, projecting or saying this will happen or that. I'm just looking at it from a logical perspective, no dreams or anything like that. I'm looking at it from a logical perspective. I'm looking at what happened the last time. And I think you're going to see the same thing happen. So something jolting in this country, or something happening in this country that jolts it to upset the process of election, would not surprise me one bit. And I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to see this. I think it's really kind of common sense. They basically play the same game over and over and over again. And the reason it's going to hit ahead is because if another political power or political ideology gets into power, whether it be true American Democrat, true American liberal, or true American Republican, I think that you're going to see people arrested for treason. and that is what they're trying to avoid. I believe it. Again, I am. It may sound like a conspiracy theory. I don't think it is. I think the evidence is sufficient when you look at the communist and the Marxist plans from the 1960s until now. They have implemented it over those years. Okay, from the 60s till now, it has been slowly being implemented, and they've carried it out. They've carried it out right under our nose, and I think, I can't say for sure, but I think that a lot of politicians just ignored it. Never thought it would get to this point. But that's where we're at now. I mean, this country has never been in a position like this. I don't think, that I can think of since its founding. There was one other point I wanted to make. I'm worried about this country. I mean, that's what it was. I mentioned the Great Experiment. Well, what we've done is we've tried to continue the Great Experiment, but we've removed God. Okay, so we've taken God out of schools, and I don't know how many realize this, but it was right around the same time that the gang members moved in. We stopped praying in classrooms, and we started sexualizing children. Abortion went from rare and safe to abortion on demand up until the child's born. Just so we see how these laws have creeped in, and many of the laws, many of the things that that certain people push are just evil. It just is evil. And again, this is how laws and politics become intertwined with religion. There's only so many children of gods that you can murder before you pay for it. There's only so long a country can be wealthy and rich and powerful without God, and pushing God aside and inviting demons in at the same time. It can only go on for so long before it falls. Rome fell in a day. It was the most powerful empire on the planet, and you just woke up the next morning and it was basically gone. It imploded. And so, I think it's important to preach the gospel in this country. I think it's important to share the faith. I think it's important to share belief in a God that loves and a God that has mercy. Something happens when you do that. It plants a seed, and then that seed grows, and it turns into a fire. It would consume the country. I think it was Our Lady of Medjugorje that had said that the West has made great strides, but it's done so without God. And again, a country can only go so long. I think we've sustained ourselves for a very, very long time, just with the physical power we have, the wealth that we have, raising the debt ceiling. We've bailed our way out of certain disaster so many times that there's really no way to bail it out now except with prayer. I'm worried about the other countries turning on us. I believe that this war in Ukraine could have been avoided. There was a hearing I watched, a congressional hearing, in which a member of this current administration had said that they were worried about Russian troops or the Russian army getting their hands on biological weapons. And she kind of spilled the beans right there. What it told us is that there were biological weapons labs in Ukraine. It also tells us that this administration knew about it. And so it makes you wonder, whose labs were they? What bioweapons were being produced, which is against the law, international law. And why didn't we do anything to stop that if we knew about it? If they were there, Zelensky knew about it. They're in his country, and so like I say, it really makes you think. When you start putting all these pieces together, with the gain of function research and the way COVID, broke out again right before the election, which, they shut down the whole world and then passed these international laws, completely changed the way people vote in this country. And I don't know how they can arrest for someone questioning election fraud when you actually have it on tape. It's on videotape. We all saw it. And so it's amazing to me how that works. But again, I think one of the things that really bothered me about this is I watched an interview of one of Trump's lawyers that was arrested. And I believe her name was Jana Ellis. She's a Christian. She openly proclaims her belief in Jesus, her love for the gospel and for our Lord. And she was arrested. And she had a mugshot taken. She was put in jail. And she was given a $100,000 bail. And in watching this young woman, I felt very bad for her because she doesn't have that kind of money, even as Trump's lawyer. She's not rich, and just the way she spoke about that, she wasn't rattled by this because of her faith, and that was one of the things that I think not only jumped out at me, but that I wanted to share with you. And I don't know if she was Catholic or if she was just Christian, but she believes that truth will prevail. She was not rattled by this at all. I mean, can you imagine just, being a lawyer representing somebody and being arrested, taken out of your home, put in jail, having your mugshot taken for a crime they say you committed that they have no evidence of as of yet. They haven't produced any. And then given a $100,000 bail and having to rely on family and friends to make up $90,000 of that, because she could only afford 10. And but it struck me in a powerful way when this young woman said, "I was not shaken, and I never will be shaken because of my faith in Jesus Christ." I think that we all need to have that kind of attitude, and I believe it's really, really important, as you know, to pray the chaplet every day and to offer it in reparation for the sins of this country. If we don't turn this around, it's only going to get worse. They will silence the lambs. They will censor the priests. They will silence the lay people who speak out against these things, like myself and others. We in America don't understand what it is to live with a tyrannical government. We've been living in soft socialism for a long time, but we don't know what it is to live in a tyrannical government where they start separating people, where they force you to accept things that aren't even reality, that a woman can be a man and a man can be a woman. And if you don't acknowledge that, then you could be arrested. I mean, this is the kind of lunacy that we're talking about. This isn't even logical anymore. It is absolute lunacy. And if we want to keep this country great, if we want to see America thrive, first and foremost, we as a country have to turn back to God. And that doesn't mean just to live your Christian faith in your room, in your house, in your church. It means to live your faith out in the world. To do acts of mercy, live the message of divine mercy. You know, it's not something that we do in our room. Living the message of divine mercy is carrying Jesus out into the world to someone else that needs him. What will save this country is love. At the same time, we have to speak truth. We have to stand our ground as Americans, while the Constitution is still the Constitution. You know, I recently heard something about there was concern about if something happened, you know, if there was a disaster. Well, talking about disasters, we're missing hundreds of thousands of kids in Maui. No one knows where they are. They're just gone, and no one's talking about it. We have to pray for this country. We have to stand for truth. And we have to speak it boldly. Bad things happen when good men say nothing. And so we have to have courage. We have to have the same kind of faith as that little young female lawyer who was mugshot, arrested, put in jail, and was given $100,000 bail and was absolutely unshaken by it. What an amazing testimony of faith. We have to live our faith. We have to live the message of divine mercy. And again, what that means is taking the love of God out into the world. That's what's missing in this world. People are hungry. They're starving for something, and they're turning to all these different things that the government has fed them, that pornography has fed them, that drugs, sex. What's missing is love. What's missing is God. That's what they hunger for. And we have an obligation as children of God to carry the love of God out into the world. We have to do that. It's not just about the church. It's not just about praying your rosary, in the family at home. That all of that's good. But it won't do this country any good unless we carry the grace that we receive out into the world and give it to someone else that needs it. That's the most important thing. And I would reiterate praying the chaplet every day, because I truly feel, I sense it just intuitively, that before this election there is something coming that will jolt this country. And whether or not people recognize it for what it is, it could be, a fake pandemic. It could be, at this point, they can do so much with AI. It could be anything. It could be an outside attack that they allow to happen. But they're not going to let this election go by smoothly. They can't, because their necks depend on not allowing it. I truly believe that. There are people within our government who have committed treason, and justice needs to be served. It's insidious. It is cunning. It's deceitful. It's Marxist communism. That's exactly what it is. And that's what we're praying against. Communism is an enemy of heaven. Our Lady of Fatima made that very, very clear. And if we don't do our part, if we don't stand up, if we don't start speaking truth, we can't be worried about persecution. Persecution will come our way. It always does for those who love God. But when you have God fighting for you, there's really no way to lose. And that's the way we need to approach this. We can't have fear. Egypt at one time was the greatest power on the face of the earth. The entire army chased down this little group of Israelites and Moses standing at the Red Sea. Look what happened to them. Okay? Believe in miracles. They happen. So, anyway, that's my take on this. I would say really pray for the protection and the integrity of this election. Follow the example of that little lawyer. We can't be shaken. They're going to try to do everything they can. There's a lot of people involved in this that are very powerful and have great influence and just unlimited amounts of money. And so, it's kind of like David and Goliath again. But we need to remember who won that. We have to speak truth in this country. I will. I can't stand by and watch what's being pushed on our children and not say something. I can't. So we need courage. We need men of courage, priests and bishops of courage. They're going to stand up against this. Because what's happening is the policies, the ideologies that are being pushed in this country, the foreign policy, and I believe that it's being done on purpose. We're isolating ourselves from the world, and in doing so, becoming enemies of those we used to call friends. And so, that doesn't lead to a good outcome, but it leads to the outcome that the communists and the Marxists want. So please pray the Chaplet of Divine Mercy every day and offer it in reparation for the sins committed by the United States, especially the sin of abortion. And may God bless you. May he keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you, and may he grant you his peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.